Krishna Subramanian, CEO and co-founder of Captiv8.
Paul Woolmington, CEO, founding CEO of Canvas Worldwide.
Awesome. So excited to speak with you today.
Yeah,
it's a great week here in New York for Ad Week. Maybe as we're jumping into things, would love to just get a little bit about your background and how you got into storytelling and how that came about.
It's great to be here, and I'm CEO of Canvas Worldwide. We started the agency 9 short years ago. We're kind of in that adolescent phase. We've had, lovely growth, wonderful clients, incredible culture we've built there. In fact, very proud this year we were the #1 ad and media agency in Ad Age's Best Place to Work.
Congratulations, that's amazing.
That was really great. Yeah. I think that's one of the accolades we all, feel best about, because it's really about the people voting about their feelings about the agency. Yeah, and I've had quite a good and really varied career. I founded a group called Naked Communications, which we took around the world. We sold it. I founded a group called The Media Kitchen, which we sold to what's now called Stagwell. And then I worked in some of the big holding companies. So I kind of been a poacher and a gamekeeper. The Naked phase was we worked very closely, almost like de facto clients.
Got it.
As a consultant, I've worked in the media space and the agency space. So I was quite adept to change, which of course is all around us.
Yeah, got it. No, that is great. Awesome background, and definitely you've probably seen the evolution of just marketing and advertising and even storytelling over the years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Kind of the waves of change, and you've got to go with the flow. I have this theory that everyone's waiting for this point of change, and it's like I call it like a fast-moving river, and you just got to jump in and just allow yourself to be in the flow of change. I think change is constant and around you, and as opposed to you're going to write about this point at which X changes, we kind of live in that minute by minute change. So, I think that's just a kind of philosophical point that people just bear in mind. I think the young generation are very adept to it. A lot of older generations, actually feel like, okay, well, there is this, we need to prepare for this change. No,
it's going to happen.
It's constant, but and the storytelling thing is interesting because it's been a passion point and it's much used as a term, but actually, funny enough, I was a senior fellow at Columbia University, actually lecturing in transformative storytelling in the digital age. So we it was nice to work in academia, but applying a lot of what I'd been essentially practicing within consulting and agency life, and it was interesting because we worked with the media makers, the influencers, and the runners, as well as then the marketeers and the showrunners, and then the marketeers. So it was kind of fascinating. We actually worked on a few of those frameworks, which I think very applicable to Captiv8 and the world of influencers, which is a microcosm of storytelling of the macro storytelling worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's been really interesting is just thinking about storytelling to different generations. And when you think about Gen Z versus millennials versus Gen X and baby boomers, the storytelling and how you bring about the content itself to those generations varies so much, right? Like Gen Z is so, definitely leans into the vision, mission, values of a brand and really wanting to know that before they even start to get this emotional connection with that brand specifically.
Yeah, I think that's very much, to build on that, I think, something that I kind of like in a world of complexity, in a world where atomization of platform and technique and audience, it's multivariable and it all happens often simultaneously. Yeah. But I kind of frame it by saying, look, would my mum understand a story world? And I kind of say, well, within this story world, you have hero content, you have obviously hygiene content, everyday heroes, maybe where you spend more money. Yeah. And it can be anything, by the way. Content is very, very broad definition. And then you have your hubs. And then obviously you have your audiences, and I think understanding the technique, the audience, the motivation, the platform is an intricate process. Yeah. And that's right. What used to be monolithic or it would be singular is now multiple plural.
Yeah.
And even in your world of influencers and social and platforms, it's multivariable, isn't it? You can't, anyone who thinks they can just have one strategy, because you might have different audience, different technique, different platform, different motivation, and then understanding those. And of course, in a world where you've got to give control. You are largely working with a brief, but you're working with creators and you're working with people who want to bring their creativity to the table. That's something that I think we long since, but still there is a nervousness when you kind of give up a bit of control.
Exactly, and I think you bring up a great point. Like, authenticity is so important, both for the brand and the creator. And the minute you try to control a creator too much and put these guardrails around them, you go from leaning into a creator to hiring talent. And and I think there's still that area and learning experience where brands are really trying to let go, but not let go completely, but still want the same ROI, and trying to get everyone within the brand comfortable with it, depending on where they're from, and where they're from and how much they lean into influencers. I think is an opportunity of growth for just across the industry.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it is a journey. It's education, it's literacy, it's obviously having a professional infrastructure around it, which is obviously, this industry has gone through a few waves of change, and I think it is really being professionalized, and that's why it's scaling. It's at a really interesting point, but it is also about literacy, and it's also about feeling comfortable, kind of managing expectations a little bit. And there's legal implications. There's lots of layers to this, but I think often people who get the best out of it have been somewhat immersed in it and feel more comfortable and maybe that ability to give a little bit more to the creator and engage in that, and that actually sometimes is where the magic can happen.
So you work with some of the largest brands in the world, and a lot of times you're probably leading these brands into the future and trying to pull them along. How do you help? You mentioned literacy. How do you sort of bring them on that process and journey?
I think it's a day-to-day thing. I think it's a great question. I would say it's a two-way street as well. I think they are educating us every day as to the demands of a marketing organization, the interrelationship between marketing and finance, marketing and sales, marketing and all of those functions. I think it is behoven on all of us to understand the broader ecosystem. So I often talk about there is an internal journey of producing brilliant work, and there's an external customer journey, if you like. And of course, the customer journey has been fragmented, and even those internal journeys, but understanding. So I think one of the first things is kind of having a contract of expectations and education around roles, responsibilities, the pressures that go on in both sides of the organization, and that's an education, and that creates alignment. I think alignment is one of the most misunderstood things. Having alignment between partners is so important, how you manage expectations, how you educate. I think literacy and education is an ongoing thing. And I think it's behoven on all of us to reach out to great partners like you, to educate us and our wonderful brands, and vice versa, because that is also then, I think of the ecosystem not just being the agent and the brand, but also the partnerships that exist, because great work happens in this kind of much broader collaboration. But some other tips I think are, every day, we're full of jargon. Small things like, I always stop and I say, dare to be stupid. What does that mean? Because we all in our specialist areas can sometimes assume that people are on the same wavelength. So sometimes just giving a little bit of context, or just even appreciating and saying, can I give you a little bit more texture around this recommendation that we're going to make?
I like that.
is a good thing to do. Get rid of the jargon as well. Talk common sense language. And I'm the first one to say I'm supposed to be the expert, and the client looks at me and I go, what does that mean? Because we're all in danger. And I don't think we hide behind jargon, but I think what happens in all of our professional lives is we do that. And yeah, dare to be stupid. Just keep asking the right questions.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? And what is its contribution to and also see the bigger picture. That's the other thing is we're often. I can talk a little bit about outcomes and roadmaps and processes and things like that, but we all are focused on subsets of a much bigger. We're all contributing to a much bigger ultimate KPI.
Yep.
Let's say it's the ultimate KPI of success.
Yep.
Might be sales, or it might be brand awareness and sales at the same time.
Yep.
Preference and and actions.
Yep.
Behavior change.
Yeah.
But then we're all in these subsets in many ways, and even let's say Canvas is a subset of other things that are going on in that brand world.
Yeah.
So understanding all the other things that we can influence or can influence us.
Yeah.
Economic, pressures or tactical pressures, cultural pressures, all sorts of things. But yeah, I think it's an ongoing process, and I think everyone. So internally, I try and nourish people by saying, appreciate what happens to the left and the right of you.
Yep.
So why we do One Canvas, we do these events, we actually try and force people into training sessions, which they train in the deep training in their specialist area. But the broader leadership training is about collaboration. It's about empathy, it's about leadership, it's about other skills that actually then bring you into juxtaposition on people that you go, well, why? What's the interrelationship between search and, buying a Super Bowl spot?
Yeah,
it's a big connection.
Definitely. Yeah.
This happens to be an incredible technique, but I would say, one of the great measures now is, search intent has always been one of those, great next level of. Anyway, I maybe over elaborated on but a great question.
Great. Yeah, I think you bring up a great point around alignment, and I think something that I'm super passionate about too is making sure that marketing objectives and the KPIs are aligned from the get-go. Because if you don't have that understanding, the outcomes are never going to align, right? And the expectations are never going to align. And I think even connecting the dots between different marketing tactics, right? So even within influencer and creator, there could be brand or performance, and these days it's brand and performance that we're seeing more and more of. So you need to know how these pieces connect together to align to the bigger goal of the brand for sure. So completely agree, and I love the let me give you more texture on that because I think that's so important to be able to lead a brand and client into the right direction.
That's right, because I think there's an instinct when you get a brief to immediately go to action as opposed to take a step back and say, not to question. I mean, you can question the brief, you can nourish the brief. I mean, I love that. I love when people nourish the brief and have we thought about this, or ask the right questions at the early point. Alignment, I agree with you, your goal alignment, even if you're one part of the contribution to it, at least it means. But the other alignment, I think, is just the human alignment of just understanding deadlines and understanding and managing expectation alignment can actually be also, sometimes people are over-optimistic or under-optimistic or just, well, let's just get on with it and we'll figure it out as we go. But that can lead to areas that, then you're not quite sure what success looked like.
No, definitely makes sense. One of the interesting things I've been seeing more and more of is the influence of AI within creativity, within marketing and creativity, and just given your storied background, would love to get an idea of how you think about AI in the creative process, and what role will AI play in creative magic? If any.
I think it's such a huge topic, isn't it? Break it down a little bit. I think, education is one. Literacy, just by playing with it on a personal level. I've just embraced as many different techniques within it and just understanding the limitations because we all read about it, but reading about it doesn't really immerse yourself in it. So I think there's a personal journey that you have with AI, even in your personal lives, being able to do, kind of crazy things or fun things, but also just the overclaim or the underclaim. From a Marcom perspective, it's going to have profound effect. I think, again, hero and hygiene, I think there will be a lot of hygiene. Clearly, a lot of stuff in our media area was already using AI. I mean, fundamental of most digital platforms, AI is a fundamental part of that, whether it's audience development, it's, programmatic areas. So we were but it was hidden in plain sight, it was kind of, I think the next evolution of it will be different applications. I think in media there can be, the hygiene stuff will be how do we make our jobs more efficient, how do we share things quicker, how do we get briefs done, how do we do that primer stuff, strategically being able to actually, no one wants AI to do our job, but it's I think it's a good start point. I think it's like, okay, I'm not asking you for AI to do your homework, but I am actually saying it can give you a proxy quite quickly.
Definitely.
Can give you some hypotheses that then you can intellectually, with your team, challenge, build on, reject. But it's like a great research tool. It's a great primer tool. It's a great way to cut out a number of steps, speed the process up. So those old, we're going to go off and we're going to do this research for 3 weeks before we actually then start. No, you can do that
right away.
In collapse time. On the creative front, obviously, it's again atomizing. I would say that in areas like influence, I think AI is being used a lot in audience identification. It's being used a lot to kind of select different types of influencers, whether it's your macro or your micro, your nanos, what can be those relationships, roles, especially as you move into more plural areas, the micro influencers, I would imagine, certainly you could talk more to this, but understanding what groups might have areas where they can really lean into around purpose versus product demos versus, they're passionate about a particular topic.
Exactly.
And how do you aggregate those? So I think AI is going to automate that. I mean, as opposed to, let's say your celebrities where you might have one or two, and that can be personal preference.
Exactly.
And also, it's a controversial topic, obviously, the extent to which, copyright will be a fundamental part of how we might use it. We're being very careful, I think, with legal aspects to it. We do want legal to sit there quite closely. So there's multiplicity. I mean, we've done some AI summits, but what we've said is we didn't want to talk about it. We've done, kind of summits where we've really had hands-on keyboards, I like to call it. So we've done workshops with clients, but also with internal stakeholders where we've kind of tried to demystify it by saying, okay, well, we'll bring in Getty Images, but we'll bring in Clinch, or we'll bring in partners. We should bring you guys in and actually then have sub-sessions, because I think you probably are leaning into it a lot, and I think you could teach us about ways in which we can automate things for the good of efficiency and effectiveness, but also still have that human element of how do we get that best, that really amazing creative out of it. It's a huge topic. It's, we're in the end of the first innings. It's only going to get better. So all the naysayers who say, "Oh my God, it's only going to get better, and it's getting better faster." And so that's the other thing about change. How do you codify AI use today will be different in a year's time. Definitely. In another year's time.
Definitely.
So having that, and I don't know anyone can predict it. I think you just got to go back in the flow. You've got to feel comfortable with that kind of change and be able to lean into the technology, or we're going to be, great topic. We're doing more and more and more. We've got, of course, everyone's got their AI committee, but I don't want, my AI committee is, I want to fund, we are funding a lot of kind of little beta experiments on AI against different platforms.
Got it.
And I actually have given everyone the brief to fail abysmally, because you learn almost more from failing, but just come up with crazy ideas. So I've got the finance department working on AI. We've got internal bot consolidating invoicing.
Fair
we
enough.
actually created, we're in the third generation actually of it. It's a pain point, consolidating invoicing. Like, why wouldn't AI help at the hygiene level, but at the hero level? I think hero level is going to be fewer and far. A lot of people in conferences try and give these illustrations of big hero applications of AI. We just made the first TV commercial with AI. That's, I'm not sure that's the best application.
No, definitely. I think there's a couple of things that you leaned into that where we really leaned into too is leveraging AI for let's say efficiency and effectiveness.
Yes,
And so
yes.
I think that's where we're seeing the most success. Let's say on the efficiency side is really leaning into the data to predict the outcome that an influencer might have. So driving sales, or
Yes.
like how much sales are they going to drive, or branding and awareness, like what is that brand lift or purchase intent going to be, and really leaning there. Can we like streamline being able to select influencers so it's not as subjective? Because sure, there's only one Taylor Swift and only one Travis Kelce, but when you're talking about the mid to micro, there's so many, right?
Yeah.
It's all audience based. So definitely excited about that is really ultimately just driving more effectiveness and almost predicting how well is a creative concept going to perform.
I love that. Yeah, and I'll build on it. I mean, we actually have a thing called an outcomes roadmap, and it's just really looking at, let's say, the journey of a marketing brief or activity. I don't like calling them campaigns anymore.
Yeah.
It's like kind of always on. But what you do is you look at all those different component parts of outcome.
Yep.
There are obviously lots of hyper specialist outcomes, and then there are macro outcomes. And then the last thing I'd say, probably we're trying to define a new discipline within Canvas, and I think within the industry, and we're calling it the data storyteller.
Okay.
So everyone has an analytics department, technology departments. They're too departmentalized.
Yeah.
Who is the prologue, like Shakespeare's prologue, who tells you where you are?
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we're now in a forest. We've now moved to this particular scene.
Yeah.
So, the data storyteller is someone who tries to join the dots.
Okay.
It's obviously you need to have a good understanding of attribution.
Yep.
But it's also understanding each of the contributions of those outcomes.
Got it.
But I do agree with you.
Yep.
I think, using AI to proxy an outcome,
Yep.
And then measuring against those benchmarks. I mean, and the more you do it, the more you'll have benchmarking.
Yeah.
And the more then you can be predictive, and the more that actually your value can be enhanced because it's an outcome.
Got it.
It's not, obviously, elasticity of value is against an outcome.
Got it. Yep. No,
As opposed to a piece of content.
Exactly. No, 100%. And that's where more money
Which is
comes
a
into
shame.
space. Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
But of course, the creator thinks, oh, well, I've got the coolest thing. But even they understand their followers and how engaged people are in their content is almost more important, or as important as the content itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. It was really great chatting with you.
Yeah,
Good seeing
lovely.
you.
Yeah. Krishna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We love our partnership with Captiv8.
Awesome. Likewise.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.